Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Tech Leaders Unplugged. This is Tullio Siragusa, your host. Today, I am speaking with Cami Zimmer at Glympse. We're talking about solving for the last mile. The specific topic of conversation is last mile logistics, the gateway to the customer. Welcome to the show, Cami. Good to have you.
Thanks. Thank you so much for having me today.
So before we dig into the topic and clarify what the last mile means, because some people may not know what that means, we want to make sure we're very inclusive with the audience. Let's get to know you a little bit. How did you end up here? Tell us a little bit about your story and what
Yeah,
does Glyphs do?
sure. Well, I've been at Glimpse for 6 years now. And before that, before coming to Glimpse, I had my own business that I worked with technology software companies in the connected car space, telecom, IoT space for the last probably 15 years, just helping companies with some various different marketing and business development type of projects and goals that they have. So came to Glimpse 6 years ago with the overall goal to increase the sales and increase the visibility of Glimpse from a global standpoint.
All right. So from a head of sale to another head of sales, how's that been right now? It's a tough market right now.
It is a tough market.
That's a
Wow.
whole other conversation, right?
Oh, yeah, that's another podcast here that we got going on here. No, so actually what's been interesting, yes, obviously the last 3.5 years have been just one interesting struggle after another as we rolled from nobody responding to anything to a couple of inquiries on some of the stuff that we offer to last year, whatever last year was. Interesting enough, I am noticing that as of probably the end of first quarter 2023, I've noticed quite a bit of more companies reaching out to us, more companies coming to us with various different location based visibility needs. So I'm feeling real good. We're entering second half here, 2023. I'm feeling pretty good about the pace of things. Of course, we're entering summer, but I think that things are starting to loosen up a little bit more so
Good.
now this year. So
Good. There's been a lot of companies that have just kind of been in a holding pattern,
yeah,
bracing and maybe realizing, okay, maybe we should move forward and continue to grow here. So
exactly.
let's talk a little bit about this, the last mile. What does that mean for those folks who may not be aware of that? And I'd be curious to see how Glimpse, what kind of tools and solutions that Glimpse provides around this.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, real quickly, just a real quick 1 minute overview on Glimpse. We're a 15-year-old company, so we've been around since 2008. Another interesting time for many technology companies.
Hmm.
But our consumer app, many people will know our consumer app. It's used globally by people for sharing your location with friends and family. What's interesting about that is kind of the core of who Glimpse was, and it was established. That was before the iPhone even came out. So sharing your location today with friends and family may not seem like such a great big there's so many different ways you can do that, right? But in 2008, even before the iPhone came out, there wasn't as many, and apps were just, not quite as crazy as they are for today. We've built upon that location sharing with friends and family, and we now are focused on the enterprise side. So we work with very large companies globally for sharing the location of some type of an asset going from point A to point B. Maybe that's a technician that's going to the end customer and sharing the location, a lot like Uber. We're older than Uber as well too, and you can kind of see where we kind of get our pioneerness here at Glimpse for sharing visibility and location with various different assets. The last mile is where we tend to focus because that's where the end customer is waiting for that asset. Maybe it's a pizza that they're waiting for. They're seeing the visibility to know exactly when they should go out, put their dog away, go grab the pizza. Maybe it's the very last mile is where the technician is coming to your house to put in a new modem for your house. You actually have to be there to let that person into your house. Maybe that last mile is more so about someone coming to deliver or install solar panels. You can kind of see where that very last piece of the puzzle, you go from the ordering process all the way through the very end where we contact the customer. We let them know when that person's going to be there. And that's where we focus on that last mile of the last mile.
All right, great. Let's talk a little bit about on a commercial aspect from a B2B perspective.
Mhm.
We've heard quite often about the use of location and visibility tools to optimize delivery in very complex last mile environment. Like, for example, safety prioritized spaces like warehouses and distribution yards.
Yes.
How does this come into play? I mean, because I would assume in those environments sometimes there's delays that happen. There's mission critical things where those delays shouldn't happen. So, how does this solve some of those mission critical challenges?
Yeah, great. That's a really good question. So we've been brought into this logistics and supply chain world, not by anything that we probably thought about in 2021, 22, 23. Wasn't really part of our sales plan, but we were organically brought into it. And I think the reason, to answer your question, is a little bit more so you're waiting for various different things. If you think about the Amazon, the Uber effects that, you hear about those all the time, it's just magnified when you're waiting for very large things to show up, whether it's like a bed or maybe it's a rail car, maybe it's a truck, a truck that's going to show up for various different pickups or what have you. Letting that end person know when that asset will show up, when it's such a large type of it's not just regular pizza, right? It's something very large. That visibility and that location and the expectations around that are super key, because not only are you waiting for something, but there's probably something that has to happen when that actually arrives, whether it's maybe a crane that has to put something on top of a truck or a rail car or something like that. You're waiting, and it's that waiting time that people just don't want today, and they don't want that, if that makes sense. And that's where
Yeah.
Glimpse comes in. We give that visibility into it, so there is no more waiting time. You know exactly when that person will arrive.
All right, let's dig into that a little bit. Curious to see, what kind of challenges has Glenn seen customers addressing with this kind of capability. Do you have
Sure.
specific cases? I'd love to learn. People watching might say, "How do I use that?"
Yeah.
Let's dig in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll dig in a little bit. So for the most part, when you think of like a field service, we think of the field service industry. I'll start there, and then I'll go more so, maybe more so into the logistics and supply chain. If you think about a field service delivery, that's maybe the delivery of some type of a technician or a person that's going from point A to point B. Maybe they're going to drop off a printer, and then somebody's got to come and see that visibility and put the printer together. You have to have that, those two people talking and have that visibility into things. When it gets, like I said, a little bit bigger, where we're seeing is in so the manufacturing space. Maybe it's a metals mill or a steel mill or the scrap mill. You have various different drivers that are coming to pick up a product. You have possibly, like I mentioned before, a crane operator that's waiting for that driver to show up to put the products on top of the actual truck or truck carrier. That visibility and that awareness of when that person will arrive, so that the other person can be ready to do his or her job, is and have it be a seamless experience. Not only is that a great customer experience, but it also saves and on the operational, the bottom line. And what's interesting is before COVID came, we saw customer experience, customer service to be kind of people's key reason for contacting a company like Glimpse. But as we're looking at the last couple of years, operational savings are huge for companies. Anywhere they can save operationally, whether it's time, money, truck rolls, those are kind of what people are looking at today.
Hmm. So I can't help but think of the experience with Amazon when they're about to deliver a package. I can see, your package is 8 stops away, 6 stops away, 5 stops away, and then it helps tremendously if it's something that was important. I don't want it to be left out. I can plan to be back home, or someone picking it up, bringing it inside.
Mhm.
The same principle, I guess, for businesses. Is this really just making that kind of technology, which is often a closed garden for big companies like an Amazon or Walmart, in democratizing it for every businesses and every logistic company to use it? What's the next step for companies to adopt this kind of thing?
Sure. I think sometimes what we see, the next step would be to think about would you like to do it internally? Would you like to use like an expert company, like a vendor to work with, a company, like Glimpse or something like that? And I think those are the questions that people have to ask. What we find is that when it comes to various different companies, a FedEx, a UPS, a DHL, like those type of companies, right? Um, they have to really think about it when they look at next steps. Is it just a parcel package? Does the end customer really need to know, or can they just set it on their step? What
Mm.
happens is that the next steps are to really think about what that experience is for some of the companies that are out there, any of the companies, whether it's in manufacturing or delivery or any of those. It's basically the next step is to think about what it is that you're actually delivering. If it's maybe just a small parcel that you can just leave on the step, that's one thing. But if the person has to be home to accept that package or accept that large item, that's when you really have to think, I should probably, from an operational standpoint and a customer standpoint, I should really look at who I should work with. And we hear a lot of companies say, "Oh, we can do that internally. We can do that internally." But where they often forget is that it actually takes a lot more than just sending text notifications out to people, if
Mm.
that makes sense. It's a lot more complicated than that.
Can you give us some examples of what it was like before and after with perhaps a logistics or delivery company that has implemented this? Be curious to see the business impact or the customer service impact that
Sure.
has had.
Sure. So we work with a roadside assistance company, and this is think about you're stranded on the road and a tow truck's coming to you, right? You're a little anxious. You're on the side of the road. You're wondering when that person's going to show up. Before working with us, they actually required their tow truck drivers or their drivers to go ahead and call the person that's stranded on the road. Like, I'll be there. Where are you? If you think about it, not only is that unsafe because it's distracted driving, it's putting a lot of extra time and efforts on their drivers who should actually be focusing on the road, if that makes sense, right? Not
Mm.
fumbling through to find the information. And also they're using their personal phones. So that's kind of creepy also, because nobody wants to be stranded on the side of the road and get some random text or call from somebody they don't know. They might not even pick up the phone. So with utilizing a company like Glimpse, it just happens behind the scenes. So the driver is coming out. In this case, the tow truck driver is coming out, and things are just happening on behind the scenes. Um, we are sending the notifications right to the stranded driver on the side of the road. Your tow truck driver will be there. Push this button here to see. It's just like an Uber-like experience to see the
Right.
driver coming to you. Everything is happening behind the scenes. The person waiting, the customer waiting on the side of the road, is getting notifications and feeling very confident that someone actually is coming, and they can see exactly in real time when they'll be there. Your driver doesn't have to do anything; just has to go to the appointment.
Yeah, I have actually experienced that use case when I was waiting for a tow truck, and the company I was working on had this capability, so I could track how far they were, where they were, and definitely provided some
Mm,
comfort in knowing, okay, I got another 20 minutes to wait here in the middle of nowhere. So it improves customer service for organizations that are providing those kinds of services. Makes it easier for the customer to have visibility on what's going on, so they can plan accordingly.
mhm.
What advice would you give to companies today to ensure that their supply chain visibility and efforts around this are a resounding success? Like, it seems as though there's a lot of companies that still lack this kind of capability. What should they do?
Yeah. I think what they should really do is think about working with a company that I is an expert in this. Sometimes we hear this all the time. "Oh, I can do that. We can do that internally." But I think really when it comes down to it is it's just looking at a partner as a partner versus as a vendor. So reach out and talk to people. That's what many of us do this for a living. So we've seen the struggles. We've actually probably felt the struggles inside our own company, right? We've been doing this a long time, and there are a lot of experts in this industry. And reach out to them and consider them more as a partner versus a vendor, if that makes sense.
Hmm. So I'm curious, what's the tech that's being used? Is it using just GPS positioning, LTE,
Yeah, we
5G?
have
How does
a
it work?
location platform that we actually have a full platform that we use. The platform, like I said, we were a 15-year old company. We have various different APIs and SDKs that companies can utilize. But yes, when it comes down to what we need to be successful to use our platform for various different companies in all the different industries, we need to figure out where the GPS, where that driver or where that asset is. So we need that, and then we need to know who and where to send the notifications, and whether it's text notifications or emails or in-app notifications, we need to know who to send those to. And that platform, like I said, here at Glimpse has been built out for 15 years. It's got battery optimization abilities to it, geofencing capabilities, all of that. But
So,
those are the main things that we need.
so is there equipment that's required at the truck level? Does it work off of the mobile phones? How is it? How does it come together?
The way we work is we work uniquely with each customer. Typically we work with very enterprise companies, very large
Right.
companies. And so we just basically take their unique use case and we work with them to make it work.
Okay.
So here's a good example. Whether it's telematics from the truck, we
Hmm.
can utilize mobile phones, rugged, hard devices. We've even been known to place GPS pucks inside of various different food toppers for various different companies. Sandwich, Subway shop, pizza companies, that type of thing. Place a GPS puck. So it's really looking at it from a unique use case and then solving with that company as a partner.
Yeah, that's interesting. 'Cause I know from a logistics and supply chain perspective, quite often there are companies that have been providing this sort of tracking capability, but it's a fixed solution. Like you have to adopt our tools and our piece of equipment, and it's somewhat disruptive because it requires significant changes. But what I'm hearing from you is you've built enough interfaces where you can leverage the investments they've already had
Mhm.
uh, in their own telematics or GPS systems, what have you. And where necessary, you can provide those pieces of hardware to enable this to work. Um, how's that coming along in terms of traction? Do you guys get any pushback on this sort of scenario, or is that proven to be a good adoption strategy? What?
Yeah, it's been proven. This was before my time here at Glimpse. They had done various different they would work with companies like Microsoft Field Service and
Hmm.
Salesforce Field Service, Oracle, and done integrations with those companies. So a lot of times, it is an integration process with many times with whomever it is that we need to do the integration with. To answer your question, we've been doing this part of the business for probably 9 years. So we don't get any pushback. Usually when we are talking to companies, they're faced with a problem and we're just there to help solve for it. Many times we're being brought into various different industries now that we haven't in the past that are in that logistics industry. And again, they're scratching their head like, we need to get this solved for.
Hmm.
How is it that we can do this? So a lot of times we're being brought in when there's a problem versus us, trying to sell stuff. We're being brought into like, can you help us with this? You obviously have a platform play. How can you help us with this? So it's not really, it's more of a, we're here to help you kind of a situation.
So curious, Cami, what's next? With generative AI, there's a lot of movement towards
Mm.
predictive solutions. Is there talks internally about how to adopt that in such a way where it could be even more predictive based on pattern. So I can track it, but it can also, before I even have the last mile happening, I can get a predictive input on this is when it's likely going to happen. Is that something you guys are also considering? How is that going to change things?
Yeah. So are we jumping on the AI bandwagon? Is that what it seems like if you're not in AI today and you're a technology company, something's wrong with you. So yes, definitely is. We're finally at a point now. Like I said, for the last 3.5 years of whatever that was, we're finally at that point now where we're looking and, because we're in that data analytics, ingest and analyze and all that data. So now we're at the point where we're starting to, exactly like you said, look at it and say, what should we do with this data? And I think that's what every company is looking at. What do we do with that data? How can we better help our customers with that? And we're finally at a point, actually, second half 2023, where those conversations finally are starting to happen here at Glimpse. And it's an exciting time to do that.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think, gosh, they must have so much data that's coming in on how long the last mile takes and what happens along the
Mhm.
way. If a truck breaks down or whatever, I mean, you've had years of insights that could be leveraged somehow. I don't know how they could be leveraged, but I'm sure there's got to be some value from those
Yeah.
that could provide predictive, whether it's predicting when the last mile flat's going to happen,
Mhm.
or traffic or issues of that sort that could be helpful. So I'd be curious to see how that comes into play over time.
Yeah.
So we're coming up at the end, wrapping up here, and I'd be curious, what's the tech been like to build this? Is it pretty complex, or you guys using open source kind of technology, or is it more proprietary?
Yeah, definitely more.
Without giving away the secret sauce, I'm curious how you guys have built this and managed this.
Yeah, it's definitely proprietary. So, and it's like I said, 15 years worth, right? So, building upon the platform and what can we take and what can we learn from and what can we actually go in which direction as well too. So, as of right now, everything is proprietary, and who knows what the future looks like, right? Sometimes it's hard to do even 1 year out in advance, but the one thing that we're going to be building upon now is going and focusing back upon our Glimpse consumer app. We kind of took a pause from that, and like I said, it's used this consumer app. It's free to use, but we're going to go back and build upon that a little bit and add some monetization around it from some of the use cases we know people are using it for. That we can build upon it and make it better. So that's kind of one of the next steps that we're looking at is going back to our basic roots from 15 years ago and trying to build upon that for various different things. I think we spoke about like Harley
Mm.
Davidson drivers that are, driving, cruising around and making stops and all that kind of stuff and helping them with various use cases that might make their experience better.
Mm.
And I'm really, really looking forward to that. That's the heart of what Glimpse was built upon, or the pioneers of location sharing, right? So we're going to be able to start doing that this quarter or this.
I'm flooded with ideas for this. This sounds like a
Thank you.
great. I mean, you could end up somewhere if you're a rider or whatever, and get suggestion of what to do where you are, or you can put some do not go to areas for your teenage kids, and if they get close to those areas, get an alert. Hey, they're about to go somewhere they don't belong. So there's
That's
a lot of
right.
applications in that. So I'm gonna have to check it out for
Yeah.
myself.
Please give me all ideas. We'll take them. Like I said, you asked where we're going, and I think that
Yeah.
that's where the platform is
Absolutely,
ready to
absolutely.
go.
Well, congratulations. It sounds like you guys have a really great way for commercial supply chain to improve their last mile service, and quality of service and customer service, and putting the peace of mind that people want to know what's happening in the very last mile, as you mentioned. And you have a consumer application that you're going to be building upon. So congratulations. We'll have you guys back to hear how you make progress and all these things in the future.
Yeah.
But thanks for being with me this morning, Cami. Just stay with me as we go off the air in just a second, as I announce what we've got coming up. Tomorrow we have another guest. His name is Dimitri Shapiro. He's the CEO of UAI, and we're going to talk about the democratization of AI. So it's an interesting conversation. We definitely talk a lot about AI because it's disrupting the tech industry. So, if you think of everything else that's been disrupted by the tech industry, for the first time, AI is disrupting our own industry. So there's a lot to talk about. So come and join us again tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. And until then, have a great day, everyone.